Okay, so a few weeks ago at ICAST, Shimano once again shocked the fishing world and also pissed off their competitors by introducing this reel right here, the SLX DC. And this is the first DC reel that retails for under $200. Now, ever since this reel has come out, and ever since I've released videos on it, the most popular question has been, how does it compare with the Curado DC? Its more expensive older brother. And let's be honest, when you're asking me how does it compare to the Curado DC, you want to see which one of these reels casts farther. And we're going to find out today, hopefully. Now, these two reels are identical in so many ways, and I had them both out on the water casting around different lures. I didn't see a difference in cast distance, but I'm going to go out on the field and do some measurements to see if we can see any difference. Now, one thing is that these reels have identical brake systems, the IDC4, and they have pretty much identical spools right down to that single hole that Shimano drilled into them. So the spools are equal in line capacity, dimensions, 34 by 25 millimeter, and more importantly, they are identical in weight pretty much. So there's no advantage for one reel over the other as far as spool weight goes. So my theory is that Shimano may have given the SLX DC a slightly more aggressive brake profile just so that it won't outcast the Curado DC, which costs more. And that's something that Shimano does, is they're more expensive reels, they like to engineer advantages into them that will make them outperform their lower price reels, which is how it should be in my opinion. Now let's talk about how DC brakes work. Now, according to Shimano, this digital chip monitors the spool rotation during the cast 1,000 times a second, and it only applies the electromagnetic brakes only as necessary. So basically, when the chip is sensing a blow up or an overrun, it applies the brakes. Now, a lot of people theorize that with the different brake settings on DC reels, all Shimano is doing is, allowing different RPMs. So they're setting an RPM limit based on the brake setting you choose. So a lower brake setting will allow a higher RPM, while a higher brake setting will only allow a lower RPM. Now, in my opinion, and this is based on having, almost 10 DC reels, is that the brake setting controls the strength of the magnetic field. So if you're in a higher brake setting, then when the brakes do get applied, that magnetic field is stronger. Now, of course, that's just my opinion. Only the engineers in Japan who designed this brake system truly know how it works 100%. But we're going to get out on the field and we're going to do a cast battle with measurements to see if we see a difference. So let's get to it. Okay, so before we get into the cast numbers and who won that battle, let's talk about the brake settings and the tackle I used. Now, both reels used a 6'8" medium heavy fast action Shimano Convergence rod with 10-pound mono, and I set the brakes up exactly the same on both. So that means tightening the spool tension up to just minimize the side-to-side play, and both reels were casted using the number 2 setting, which is the mono braid mode. And also, trying to do the 5th cast for the Curado, I blew the spool up so bad that I couldn't pick the backlash out, so I only did 4 casts apiece for this battle. Okay, so time to get to business here, and I'm going to go ahead and flash these numbers up for you guys. And as you can see, on this day, the Curado DC beat out the SLX DC with an average of 195.54 feet, while the SLX averaged 191.41 feet. So not a whole lot in it. And yes, technically the Curado DC won. But let me tell you guys, out in the real world, casting real lures in different fishing conditions, there is absolutely zero difference between these two in casting. I don't think Shimano changed the brake tune on the SLX to make it, more restrictive than the DC. And I attribute the win to the Curado by virtue of the fact that I casted this thing first. And my dumbass decided to do this battle in the middle of the day when it was about 95 degrees with 100% humidity. So by the time I got to the SLX, needless to say, I was sweaty, I was drained, I was tired, I was getting dizzy. So if I reversed the cast order, I believe the SLX DC would have won as well. Alright, so why is the Curado $60 more when they're virtually the same reel as far as performance goes? And I think I found out the answer. Now, visually and on paper, of course, Shimano gave the Curado DC the micro module gears. So if you take my SLX DC, it is very, very smooth. For having such a low bearing count, it's very smooth and very precise. But if you take the SLX DC's gears and put a layer of silk over them, then you get the Curado DC Retrieve with the micro module gears. Basically, turning the handle on the Curado, it feels a lot more luxurious than turning the handle on that SLX. Now, of course, the Curado, it's got the X-Ship double bearing pinion, which you're really not going to feel unless there is a considerable amount of resistance on the line. That's when the X-Ship really shines. And then, of course, you look at the paint job of the two. The Curado's feels a lot better in hand. It's really smooth and nice to touch, while the SLX has got this raw graphite matte feel, which isn't bad, but the Curado feels better to palm, no doubt. And I do believe as well the components on the Curado may be higher spec. You got a metal drag star, and I believe the drag star and the handle are machined from forged aluminum, while on the SLX you got your graphite drag star and probably the same handle as the Curado. But of course, metal is better than graphite. But let me tell you guys one thing, I do believe the build tolerances on the Curado are much better, and that also attributes to the price increase. Because let me show you guys something. Now, Shimano has apparently joined the Wiggly Thumb Bar Club with the SLX, because when the thumb bar is depressed, there is some movement. I don't know if you guys can see that, and I could definitely feel it. And it's not just this SLX, it's on my SLX MGL as well, and that really pissed me off. So when I'm ready to cast and my thumb is on the thumb bar, there is some mush there, some movement. And I think that's unacceptable. Shimano needs to just ditch this stupid ass design and go back to their tried and true asymmetrical flat thumb bar. Now that little wiggle and slop is not present on my Curado. You're just looking at a very smooth, very precise, no wiggle, no mush thumb bar. So I believe, yeah, the tolerances on the Curado DC are higher, therefore that costs more money. So for those of you guys who are looking to take advantage of the upcoming Labor Day sale, maybe you can get a discount on these two, and you're trying to figure out which one you want. In casting, there is no difference at all between the two, trust me on that. But the Curado DC is just a better reel in every other respect, as far as, you know, the fishing experience. But then again, 60 bucks is a lot of money. Once again, you can get yourself, you know, a bunch of fishing lures, you can get yourself a bunch of fishing line, or you can get yourself a bait finesse reel from China. But there we go, guys. Hope this helps you out, and thanks a lot.